listening to The Gender Rebels.
I'm Kathleen, a cis woman and ally.
And I'm Faith, a trans woman.
Gender Rebels is a question and answer podcast that explores life outside the gender binary.
A big thanks to our Patreon supporters.
If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/genderrebels. Hey everyone, I'm Kath.
And I'm Faith.
Faith, do we have any new patrons to thank?
We do.
Ooh.
We have Lindsay.
Lindsay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay.
We have a listener question.
We do. This one came to us via Twitter.
Yeah.
If you ever want to Twitter at us.
We are at the Gender Rebels.
Yes, so you could Twitter or twat, as I think it's called.
I think it's twatting, yes.
Yes.
So this was twatted to us. And the question is, I'm a trans woman and musician and podcaster. Awesome. And love your podcast. But I would love to have a conversation about being a trans woman who doesn't pass or care to.
Yeah. It's a good question. It's a good topic, too. So passing and just not giving a shit about passing.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've had a bunch of episodes about passing.
We have.
Before. Why does it matter? How important is it? Should it be the goal? And so I don't want to rehash all those ideas, but essentially we have come up with it's certainly safer.
It can be safer, yes.
I imagine it's much less stressful.
It can be.
If you pass, it can be easier for your family to accept you. But a lot of people hesitate to transition because they're not 100% sure they're ever going to pass.
Yeah.
And then you've got this unpleasant choice ahead of you of being an unhappy birth gender person or a person who is the correct gender.
Yeah.
The one you truly feel you are, but constantly knows they don't pass.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a good time to unpack privilege as a concept.
Good.
Privilege is basically, I think, the best metaphor I've ever heard for it was one I heard from you. I'm going to assume you made it up. Which is video games. Playing life on easy.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who is wealthy and white and male and cis and straight is essentially playing life on easy.
Yes.
Someone who is physically disabled, has mental health issues, is a person of color, grows up poor,
isn't American,
is gay and trans, is playing life on hard. And that's what privilege really is.
And it's not to say that all white males have it totally easy. It's not it. It's just everything else being equal. Would your life have been harder had you been black, had you been female, had you been poor? Something like that.
Yes. So we should say real quick, this is a big issue I think a lot of people have with it, is they say, like, people are like, well, you need to check your privilege or you need to recognize your privilege. Privilege is not a sin.
No.
Having privilege does not mean you're wrong. It does not mean that you have done something wrong or whatever like that. But having privilege just means is that you had some advantages in life that you probably need to recognize and, quite frankly, be thankful for. Because the privilege that we have is something that we should always give thanks for. I sat down, I'll link to this below. I sat down and, like, literally one day just went through every piece of privilege. I did.
You had a good list.
I did that for my blog, and I just did it as an exercise for myself one day. But, like, the fact that I had parents who supported me, who were happy who fed me every day, didn't have to worry about food, that my parents believed in education and encouraged me to do well in school, that,
and you always sort of knew you'd go to college. I remember reading one thing is like, did you grow up assuming you'd be going to college? And I'm like, yeah, my folks went to college, my siblings went to college, I was going to college.
Yeah.
But that's so not the case. We didn't have to emigrate at any point in our lives. Our parents didn't have to emigrate.
Yeah. So passing is another type of privilege.
Yes.
Plenty of trans people don't pass and live absolutely happy, fulfilling lives.
So I'm sure you're right about that, but just for our skeptical audience members, how the fuck do you know that? Really? Like, how do we...
Because I've read people's blogs and stuff.
Okay.
I myself deal with this issue. I know that I can pass occasionally, but, like, I have other times where, like, yesterday we were going out to dinner and I had to go take the subway up to the Upper West Side from Brooklyn. And that's like a 45 to an hour minute train ride for those not in the 5 boroughs. And I just swear I was like, had one of those days where just like I was getting looks from everyone.
Yeah.
Where I just feel like I stood out like a sore thumb and just everyone was looking at me like I was a freak. So I have days like that. So
she came to me at the bar and she's like, do I look different today? Because people were staring at me like, I don't know what it is. You look exactly the same to me. So
I know sort of, I'm kind of on that fence. I've had moments where I passed, but I've also had moments where I've gotten clocked. And so I think most trans people are probably in, there's probably people who pass 100% of the time are the minority. And they're probably a vast minority.
Again, I believe you. This is your lived experience. But just real quick, are there numbers?
There's not any numbers on it.
Okay,
just me
cool.
having read trans people's blogs and
Totally.
first-person accounts and talked to trans people for like a couple decades, which is anecdotal.
Yes, I'm sorry. I even...
Okay.
Yes.
I don't have numbers.
It's anecdata.
Anecdata.
It's okay. And I think that's a hard thing to quantify and a hard thing to study.
Yeah.
But I do think that it would be helpful. Gosh, it'd be so great if those numbers were out there. 83% of all trans people don't pass 100% of the time. Gosh, it would be so good to have that concrete number, but we just don't.
We don't.
And that's a leap of faith. If you're that person who's trying to decide if transitioning into a life where you are the gender you truly are, where you don't pass.
And that's one thing that really was a huge stumbling block for me in deciding to transition. It took me a long fucking time. I knew I was trans when I was like 3 years old, and I figured out what that was thanks to the internet when I was about 17.
Wow.
But I didn't transition until I was 35. Didn't start taking hormones until I was 35. And
there's a lot of reasons for that. But
there's
one of
a
them
lot.
is you
but
thought
one
you
of them
pass?
was I thought I would be a freak. I thought I didn't want to be a freak in my everyday life.
Yeah.
And obviously trans people aren't freaks.
No.
But that was my own anxiety. That was my own fear of sticking out like a sore thumb every day.
Sure.
And I know other people have had that fear. And it's a legit fear. Everyone in society, we live in a society where humans are social creatures, and we all want to fit in.
And we're visual creatures.
We are.
We're not like rodents or dogs where we smell the world. Everything is how we see and what our eyes tell us.
And seeing someone who doesn't fit into traditional gender roles can often be, it's a different thing.
Yes.
And people who are not accustomed to that will see that as different, and different to us is weird.
Humans don't like different.
And even threatening to us.
Yes. We respond
obviously-
in a hostile manner.
Obviously, that's something you can cognitively overcome, and people do. I mean, that's the whole issue with race and ethnicity and all kinds of stuff. Is that you do? I think people have that kind of. I think everyone has that kind of innate fear of difference that has to be cognitively or socially overcome. You have to recognize, okay, that's that like Pleistocene, caveman, not caveman, Cro-Magnon, like, style of thinking that I have to overcome.
You just sound like a fancy girl when you say Cro-Magnon.
That's how it's pronounced.
I get it, but I just really, really feel like it's pronounced Cro-Magnon.
I wrote to the person.
I believe you.
I literally had this discussion with someone. I wrote to the person who coined the term. And they wrote back, because this is a fun thing you can do. You can write to academics, and they will write back.
They love it, actually. Yes. Especially if they think you're a 7-year-old doing homework.
I think that's what happens. Because I've gotten a bunch of emails and topics from like very unsettling bar arguments.
Buddy.
Where like, you know what? I'm going to Harvard.com right now and finding this professor. Okay,
Harvard.edu.
Okay, you know what I'm saying though. So I did look it up. It is. I did talk to this researcher. It's Cro-Magnon.
Okay,
so anyway,
listeners, you can say it right, or you can not sound like an asshole.
See, that's about difference. It's about being different, and so I'm choosing to be different. And so there is that part of human kind of tribalism.
Yes,
that we all kind of have that innate. It's probably innate. It's probably partly learned to desire to fit in with a group. And when you don't fit in with a group, that can be a source of stress.
Or to walk around knowing that how you are presenting, how you appear right now, will be perceived as different.
Yes. But there is also...
Possibly negative. Yeah.
There is also that idea of othering oneself. and gaining power from that.
Tell me about what that is.
So othering yourself is to self-identify and to broadcast the fact that you're not trying to fit in the group. And that is often, that's what attracted me to like punk and goth aesthetic.
So this isn't walking around with a huge blade menacingly. This is
okay. That's one way you could other yourself.
That others yourself.
But being a punk, dressing hardcore punk, dressing hardcore goth, or however, those are just two. There's other ways.
I mean, it goes the other way, right? Dressing very modestly, dressing very conservatively. You are saying there are these people that I want to hang out with, and these people I don't want to hang out with. People who can't handle how this goes are really not welcome.
So I think you can, in a sense, draw power from that too. Obviously, it can be a source of stress.
Yeah, I'd be stressed.
And a source of difficulty and a source of fear and a source of pain, emotional pain, to have to be othered. But being othered can also be a source of strength. And so when you're a trans person who's, you're a trans woman and you're 6'6", and you've got large bones, and you're going to be like, you know what? I'm honestly living my life the way I want. This is awesome. This is happy. I have had the courage to come out.
I am comfortable in my own skin.
And I've had the courage to come out when coming out might have been the most difficult for my situation. And you know what? I'm rocking it, and I'm awesome, and I'm badass, and I'm cool, and that is taking pride in the fact that you are othering yourself, that you have the courage to other yourself, because it does take that courage. And so people who have been in that position, they have incredible courage and incredible fortitude. And it's so tough, because I feel like I'm sort of in the middle. I've had that, I'm tall.
Yes.
I'm very tall. I'm not svelte. I was once svelte. I was once skinny, but I am not anymore. Quitting smoking and hitting my late 30s has not been great for my
again with the cigarette
skinniness.
Ads. You just can't.
Gender rebel cigarettes
laced with hormones.
It's a thing that happens. You smoke, it hurts your it hurts your lungs and your health, and your teeth and everything about you.
Your wallet.
Yeah. But it don't smoke, kids.
Don't.
And if you do smoke, quit, and I would really encourage you to do that. But
nicotine gum, on the other hand, is good.
I mean,
nicotine's good for your brain.
Is it? I'm not going to encourage anyone to do nicotine in any form, but I will say that... Where was I going with the smoking thing?
Skinny.
Oh, smoking is an appetite suppressant, and...
Don't smoke.
When you quit smoking, you do gain weight, so... I would
so
rather
don't start
I would
smoking.
Rather have that, don't start smoking. I would rather have that 20 pounds than lungs that don't work.
Okay, I agree.
So I do...
That radiation exposure.
Oh yeah, it is very radioactive.
Okay.
I have this thing, I'm not, I have a weird profile of a big brow ridge. My nose is kind of crooked. Like, I know people look at my pictures, my carefully selected pictures, and think, oh, Faith must pass all the time. And she doesn't. She gets clocked plenty and she gets misgendered plenty. And it stings like fucking hell every time, and I want to scream, and I want to cry, and I want to run away. So when you're in that situation where you're not passing thing, but you want to be, that can be really horribly painful. I just want to cry and run away and scream and yell and just go home and just get under the blankets and just weep. It's very stressful. I mean, it's like what the Buddha said. Desire is the key to unhappiness. So if you can eliminate that and just be like, you know what? I'm awesome. I'm me. I've had the courage to come out. I'm not going to pass 100%, but I don't care. I don't care. To me, my transition, I'm saying this is you. My transition, your transition is about accepting yourself and living the life you want to live authentically, and not about other people's acceptance of you. I think that is a healthy place to be.
So have you thought of othering yourself? You've got a bit of a goth edge to you.
I do like being goth. I was very, very goth for a while, and then I sort of let it go normal.
Mm-hmm.
When I first transitioned, when I first went to the office, I was like the anti-goth.
It was Mousy Librarian.
Mousy Librarian, and then I've slowly started just going fuck it and just getting a little more goth. So,
I mean, you desire to pass, and I think you do. To me, you do. From what I perceive, you do. In your photos, you do. But of course, you're the one living your life, and you see when people give you looks. Have you thought about deciding to just not care about passing? Have you thought about not shaving, not wearing makeup, dressing whatever comfortable goth clothes you want?
I actually haven't.
Okay.
And that, I think, is as we sit here and talk about that, seems to me almost like a weakness.
That you haven't thought.
That I haven't thought of just saying, fuck it. I'm just living my life the way I want to live it.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you haven't thought about othering yourself. You haven't thought about being out there, fuck all y'all. Some of you can handle it, some of you can't.
No, I mean, I think that takes a ton of courage, and I'm not sure I have that much courage. I think I want to take the easy road instead of the harder road. And being in that situation where you're like, you know what, fuck it, I'm living my authentic life. I'm not living it for other people. Mm-hmm. I'm living it for me. Mm-hmm. That can be harder. I think that can take a little more courage and a little more fortitude. And sometimes I have courage and fortitude in spadefuls. And then other days I am spoonless and crying.
Yeah.
And it gets a little tricky. So
for those of you who can, just own it and work it. And this is my life and this is how I look. And you can take it or leave it. And you've got people who leave it. And you've got the people who love you. You've got your community. I would worry about loneliness, but the same, this is the same thing with punks and with goths. Yeah. They find their group.
Oh, you'll find your group.
Yeah.
I think that's one wonderful thing about the internet is that you will find your group. You will find cool people who will share
flavors of weirdo out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
not to say that you're a weirdo, but
I'm a weirdo.
I'm a complete weirdo.
I think we're all weirdos in our own way.
When I use weirdo, I never use it pejoratively.
Yes.
I think I don't want other people to think I'm using that way or that we would. I think weird is always a compliment.
Yes. It's about bravery and nonconformity.
Yeah, because I've always valued nonconformity.
So when I see people who are gender nonconforming in a very visible way, especially some NBs or
bigender,
agender, and you see the guys with like lipstick and beards, or you see the ones who really are so thoroughly comfortable with who they are and how they present, and they're visually very atypical. I love that. Because then you've got this confidence and this comfort in their eyes, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see. And any of you listening who are that brave or that comfortable or don't even really care that much, that is awesome. That's so great.
Yeah. And I think there's one other thing that the person who tweeted us talked about was being a person of color. Mm-hmm. And that is a whole other tricky thing. I am of Northern European descent, so is Kath. Mm-hmm. We're not exactly the people to talk about what a person of color's life is like. We'd actually like to hear from y'all about this, I'm about to say a little bit, which is that people of color in at least modern American society, and I think to a certain extent, this is also in other countries, people of color are othered.
Yes.
And that is that whole colonialism still hurting society today.
Yeah.
But people of color are very much othered. And so when you're a trans person of color,
now you've got two things.
You're double othered, and I can imagine that would be even harder. And I would love to hear, but
we're interested in hearing from our listeners who are people of color, who are at various points in their transition, who do identify as different points on the gender spectrum. We'd be interested to hear, because we know we've skipped a lot of that. We know we have some blind spots. That's how it goes with privilege. And we do want to hear more of those stories because we know you're listening, and you're not the only one listening. You've got your trans and NB brothers and sisters listening right now who also want to hear their stories told. Write to us. Write about concerns you've had, questions you've had, even things that we have said or skipped that you think might be relevant. We would love to hear more of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when it comes to passing, I think ultimately your transition is about you.
Yes.
And you are the one who decides what you want out of life. And you are the one who decides how you're going to transition.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the one who decides what you're going to value when you transition and what your goals are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the most important thing is don't let anyone's expectations dictate how you feel. Don't look at it and go, well, I'm not passing and that's what's normal. Passing is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Passing, well, let's not say normal, but passing is
not necessarily the goal.
Passing is not necessarily the goal. The goal is to be happy.
Your comfort and happiness are the goal.
And if you can be happy being you, regardless of anyone else's expectations or wants from you, that is awesome.
You win.
You win. You basically have won.
You win life.
And that doesn't mean that your life is going to be, without its woes.
Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
But it does mean that, ultimately you can be happy. And that's what we wish for each and every one of our listeners, is for y'all to be happy.
So we would love to hear from you. If we have anyone else listening who doesn't pass and never will, doesn't pass but probably will, or any other variety along that spectrum, we'd love to hear from you. What were the decisions you made? What was the information you had to gather to figure out what you want and what you can expect? We would love to hear from our listeners.
Absolutely. And passing, guys, not the goal. It can be a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
If you have it. If not,
make your life easier, but
you without it, you can lead a spectacularly awesome life.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, we will have links to some of those blogs if we can find them.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We'll talk to you next week. Happy Valentine's Day.
I didn't know if we wanted to do a Valentine's thing or not or whatever. All right.
We'll talk to you next time. Bye everyone.
If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep making more great content, go to patreon.com/genderrebels.
We have many different levels of support and lots of great rewards,
including drinks with the Gender Rebels at Stonewall.
Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. That makes it easier for other people to find us.
And send your questions to questions@genderrebels.com or find us on Twitter @TheGenderRebels.
Music for The Gender Rebels is by Jasper the Colossal. Follow the link down below or download them on iTunes today.
And for all our episodes, visit genderrebels.com.
The Gender Rebels is a Unboxing production, copyright 2019. All rights reserved.
And to all you Gender Rebels out there, keep rebelling.
Bye.
Bye.
Would your life have been harder had you been black, had you been female, had you been poor? Something like that.
Yes. So we should say real quick, just went through every piece of privilege. Do you want to give them Kong?
Kind of, yeah. They're in the freezer.
No, we wanted this one to be
Kong. Our favorite brand of dog shutting up toy. Endorsed by the Gender Rebels. A secondary endorsement by Skippy Peanut Butter. No, we're Jif Peanut Butter people. Get your dogs to shut up while you do a podcast with Kong and Peanut Butter.
Yes.
So privilege is playing a video game on the easy level.
It is, and privilege does not mean...
I'm going to switch rooms, maybe? He wants to be in here with us?
Or he wants to be in here with her Kong. Hello, Gender Rebels. Have you ever thought of purchasing an alligator? Well, here's your chance. We, the Gender Rebels, have 7 alligators of varying sizes, nose to tail, 7 feet, up to 13 feet. Don't ask how we got these alligators. One of them might be a crocodile. We don't remember. But they can be yours for 7 easy payments of $139.95.
Are you selling our alligator?
I'm selling some alligators.